Jacob Marley. Just who is he and how is he presented in Charles Dickens's novella A Christmas Carol? Let's find out. How is it going, Revision Squad? It is me, Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka DystopiaJunkie, and today we're going to have a think about the character Jacob Marley in Charles Dickens's novella A Christmas Carol. Just because he is a minor character, it doesn't mean that he is unimportant, as we'll see in this video. As per usual, I'm going to be analysing plenty of quotations, so you might find it useful to grab a pen and some paper before we get properly started, so that you can take notes of the things that I say, which I hope will really help you out in your English literature GCSEs. Liking this video and commenting on it really does help me out, as does sharing it and making sure you're subscribed too. So if you're feeling nice, please do give those things a go. So Jacob Marley, just who is he? Before analysing quotations, it is super important that we have a firm understanding of who the character is first. So if we think literally, we look at Marley as a character. In the story world, Marley is Scrooge's dead business partner who dies before the story properly starts. As a ghost, he is doomed to roam the world for eternity because of his misdeeds in life. Not great. So if that's who Marley is, what exactly is his role in the story? Well, his role is one of prophecy, as he appears from nowhere and warns Scrooge about the coming spirits. In doing so, not only does he warn Scrooge, but he explains to the readers what is going to happen in the rest of the story, which is useful given that the blend of ghostly spirits and time jumps could be a little bit confusing otherwise. Marley is more than a character who has a role in a story though. He can also be seen symbolically, metaphorically, or as a representation for someone or something else. So Marley could be seen as what I've called here a sort of everyman capitalist. What I mean by this is that whereas we see plenty of Scrooge and can comfortably draw comparisons between him and real people, we don't see enough of Marley to make a similar comparison. Instead, he seems like a generic Victorian capitalist, obsessed with money, not particularly kind to the poor, and with his pigtail, waistcoat and fancy shoes, he even looks the part as well. Now if Marley is a generic capitalist, it is worth thinking then why it is that Dickens has given him such a torturous afterlife. I don't really think it is a particularly big leap for me to say that Dickens does this to show that the life of a capitalist is quite un-Christian, and that the greedy pursuit of money, especially at the expense of the less fortunate, results in eternal damnation. Or does Marley's hellish afterlife represent what Scrooge's might become if he does not change his ways? The similarities between Scrooge and Marley are plentiful. They worked together, Scrooge ends up living in Marley's house, they are uncared for in death, and so on. If so much of their lives are the same, then why not their afterlives too? You could even argue, I think, that Scrooge's first glimpse into his future does not come when the final spirit visits him, but right here when his former colleague appears. So, if that's who Jacob Marley is, which quotations can we analyse in relation to him? Alright, before we dive headfirst into those quotations and analyses, a super quick disclaimer. All the page numbers I'll be using in this video and for the rest of this series refer to this book, Penguins, A Christmas Carol and Other Christmas Writings. Although our books might not have the exact same page numbers, I hope I still make it clear where exactly these quotations are located in the story. So, first up, we have this quotation from the first page of the story. Scrooge was his sole friend and sole mourner. The repetition of sole as an adjective meaning only in this case makes it clear that Marley is unloved because he has only one friend and only one person attended his funeral. Now this might make a reader pity Marley at the very beginning of the novella, but I think it becomes kind of obvious later on in the first stave that Marley's actions in life meant that he probably deserved this. Marley being unloved is emphasised only moments later in the first stave, because it is revealed that even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by Marley's death. If Scrooge was his sole friend, and even he isn't dreadfully cut up, meaning sad, like really sad, then Marley must really not be loved at all. Next up, I want us to think about the following quotation. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. Now you might be thinking, Liam, why are we looking at this quotation? It's just a bit weird, isn't it? And, well, you're not wrong, because this is a bit of a strange quotation. Part of that is because of Dickens's odd sense of humour, but mostly it's because the language used here meant something slightly different to the Victorians. Now the bit that you probably understand this quotation to mean is that the word bowels refers to the organs and guts in the digestive tract south of the stomach. So when Scrooge believes that Marley has no bowels, it's because he is currently a ghost, and Scrooge can see right through him and see that he indeed has no guts. Now that's all well and good, but that's not actually what's interesting here. In a biblical sense, bowels refers to deep feelings, which were believed to have originated from this part of the body. These deep emotions can include compassion, sympathy, mercy, and kindness. So if Marley is said to have no bowels, it means that he shows no compassion, is unsympathetic towards others, merciless, and generally quite unkind. So obviously, it seems that Marley wasn't a particularly nice chap in life. But if Scrooge hears often that Marley is unkind, it seems that he was quite notorious in life and had a poor reputation. Now, I'm not going to go over any additional quotations for this idea, as I think Marley Had No Bowels is short, memorable, and offers up some really interesting analytical opportunities that actually allows you to maybe weave in a bit of context too. Our next quotation can be found once Scrooge and Marley are talking. In the narration, it is revealed, there was something very awful too in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of its own. I've selected this quotation as it explicitly connects Jacob Marley to hell, thanks to the adjective infernal. Not only does this add a horrifying element to Marley's appearance, as he is otherworldly and seemingly affected by extreme heat, but it also suggests that he is being deeply and eternally punished for the sins he committed in life. This quotation may not hit so heavily today, but in the Victorian era, where the belief in Christian teachings was much more prevalent, this quotation would have been alarming, as it warns the readers of the punishments they may face in the afterlife if they do not lead a good life.
Because this is the most explicit reference
to hell in association with Jacob Marley,
I'm not going to provide any additional quotations for this idea.
If you want to condense the quotation on screen to only a couple words, I think infernal atmosphere is pretty important. So you might want to, analyze that phrase. Our next quotations build upon the previous one to an extent. Whereas the previous quotation showed Marley to be hellish in appearance, we're now going to look precisely at the tortures that have been inflicted upon him in death. Let's look at his physical description again, which says, the chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. It is fascinating that Marley's punishment manifests itself as a long chain comprised of items related to his previous job. Because the chain is long, we get the impression that Marley's crimes in life were extensive, and because it is wound about him, we could argue that he is unable to escape from his crimes, and that they are all-encompassing and restricting. Furthermore, the references to metal and heaviness create the impression that Marley is weighed down by his former deeds, by his guilt, perhaps so much so that he is unable to escape it. Of course, with the chain being made out of the sort of items he and Scrooge would have dealt with on a daily basis at work, the chain is a clear symbol of Marley's greed, or, if you fancy a better word, his avarice. And it seems that Marley is well aware that his avarice is the cause for his eternal punishment, as he says, "I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it." In admitting that he made the chain of his own free will, Marley is admitting to being single-mindedly greedy in life, whilst also confessing that he deserves the punishment he is now facing. After all, he wore this chain in life out of his own free will, so why shouldn't he now wear it for the rest of eternity? Our next quotations can be found close to the end of stave 1. In dialogue with Scrooge, Marley exclaims, "Business!" cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. "Mankind was my business." There are two elements to this quotation that I think present Marley as being regretful. First of all, let's think about his words. He says that mankind was his business. But we know that his job was in the counting house, dealing with money all day. This isn't Marley being forgetful. Instead, it seems to be an admission on his part of what he should have focused on in life. In saying that mankind was his business, he is saying that he should have prioritized his fellow man, rather than the pointless accumulation of wealth. Now, based on my analysis of just his dialogue, you might disagree with me when I say that Marley is regretful, and you know what? That's fine. But when we consider his body language as well, I think this interpretation of him is reinforced. You see, him wringing his hands is indicative of him feeling uncomfortable, perhaps because he is admitting something that he should have realised long ago. Certainly, you do not wring your hands when you feel at ease and happy with things. It is an act that accompanies feelings of intense discomfort and tension. Subconsciously then, Marley is revealing his inner turmoil. Still don't believe me when I say that Marley is regretful? Well, that's okay, because we've actually got a couple of additional quotations to look at with reference to this idea. You see, when Marley says that the dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business, he is expressing that his job was totally insignificant when compared to his duty to his fellow man. Treating others with compassion and warmth and sympathy and respect, it turns out, is so much more important than just hoarding money. In lamenting this so vocally, as seen by the exclamation mark, it is clear that an intense emotion is being held by Marley here, an emotion that I believe is regret. Still don't agree with me? Then why not think about how Marley asks, "Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down?" It is apparent that in life, Marley paid no attention or care to the people around him. In death, he now questions this behaviour, which I think indicates that he regrets how he used to behave, especially because he can no longer make amends for how he acted. A lesson that Scrooge needs to desperately learn. Alright, so that's the analysis of those quotations over. So,
How could we summarise?
Jacob Marley in just a couple of sentences. Well, you could say, apparently every bit as mean-spirited and uncaring as his business partner in life, in death Marley is tormented and regretful, doomed to lead an eternally hellish existence. In visiting Scrooge, he not only warns him of the coming spirits, but shows Scrooge his own potential afterlife. You might find it useful to copy down that summary, especially because Marley is a character who doesn't appear throughout the story, and so by the time you have closely read and analysed those later staves, you might forget some of the details that pertain to his character. This summary should help you if you're given an exam-style question that focuses solely on Marley, but this summary and video more generally might also help you to think about the theme of the supernatural, given that Marley is the first of 4 spectral visitors that Scrooge receives. I will eventually be covering that theme, but this video will do as a decent starting point for now. So before the video ends, I have got a quick question for you. What is the purpose of having Jacob Marley in the story? To act as a ghostly prophet? To establish the story's supernatural elements? To provide a glimpse of Scrooge's potentially hellish future? Or something else? Why? Now, do whatever you want with that question. Make a mind map, chat with your classmates about it, use it as the title for an essay, and so on. If you want to answer that question down in the comments section, write a quick paragraph, please do feel free to. I absolutely love seeing your ideas, and I'm usually pretty good at responding too, so you'll even get a bit of feedback from me. Okay, so that is my analysis of Jacob Marley complete. Genuinely, I hope that this video has helped you out, whether you are revising for exams, studying A Christmas Carol for the first time, or just have a passing interest in Charles Dickens's writing. Of course, if this video has helped you at all, please do consider showing your support by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, or even checking out my Patreon. I know that YouTuber stuff is pretty cringe, but it really does help me out more than you know, and it also helps my videos to reach even more students, which is the aim of the game. As ever, I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day. If you are revising, please do remember to take frequent short breaks. As a burned out student, it is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be. So Jacob Marley was a mean old miser in life, just like Ebenezer Scrooge. However, in death, where he is being eternally punished, he has finally learned his lesson. Just, obviously, way too late.